I was the chair of the committee at UNLV that hired Carol Harder. And that's a pretty interesting story in itself. I think the chair of the Board of Regents chose me because I live up here in the north and I'm out of the orbit of political influence down there. And there was the sense that with UNLV there would be a lot of community pressure weighing in on whichever candidate they wanted. And so I was up here and I just was out of that orbit. But it was quite an effort. What happened with that was so interesting was that the way we do it is to have a Regents Committee and then to have a campus group committee that work together. And so ultimately it's the Regents Committee that, of the board that recommends to the full Board of Regents a candidate. We worked with our committee on the campus, and they include faculty and administrators and student support services people and just representatives from the campus. We evaluated, okay, what's UNLV want? And they clearly wanted an academic. They wanted somebody with strong academic credentials that could start growing UNLV's academic reputation, and that was the most important to the campus representatives on that committee. I was very clear about that because we did about a 3-month environmental scan talking to so many people about what does UNLV need in its leadership going forward. Anyway, Carol became one of the Carol Harder became one of the finalists. And there was such a worry that, and one of the other finalists, of course nameless, was somebody that came from a football powerhouse in the Midwest. And not surprisingly, and a place that was big on athletics and so forth. So there were people in the community, we call them the good old boys, that means something, who really identified that person as the person that should be the next president. The campus was very clear they wanted Dr. Harder. She had the right credentials. When she came to interview for that position, she just nailed it in terms of what was needed and what she would do. And the whole committee was like, yes, this is the right person. But then started the influence from outside, and when Dr. Harder came for her visits to the campus, there was amazing pressure, and people did things that shocked me. She weathered some pretty difficult times in that search process as we got to the end, and it became clear that the campus really overwhelmingly saw her as the leader they wanted. And we knew it'd be unusual to have a woman president at UNLV and that there would be some pushback on that. Anyway, the way we did it was, the committee met. I was just completely committed that we would carry that recommendation to the Board of Regents, the full board, which we had meet immediately after, because we recognized that if we allowed a lag time between the committee's recommendation for Dr. Harder and if we allowed a week or two, there would be so much community pressure that could, and it can be powerful to people, particularly on an elected board. So we had our committee meeting, made the recommendation. 10 minutes later, we had the whole board convened, ready for us, went over, made our recommendation, and we got Dr. Harder elected. The UNLV wanted Dr. Harder, and they got her, and she did a great job for 11 years. As you know, there's a building named after her there. In terms of moving the campus forward and making the kind of changes that gave it much greater academic credibility and stature, and that's just continued on forward. So anyway, that's another great story, is that my role on the Board of Regents was chairing that search committee that turned into be just such a challenge. And in the end, we brought forward the first woman president the UNLV had.